Good evening, everyone, and welcome to In Conversation with Gael García Bernal. It is our Wow, we have the best audiences in the world. My name is Teresa Scandifio. I'm the Senior Director of Learning and the programmer for In Conversation with year-round and during our festival. To begin, we would like to acknowledge the Mississaugas of New Credit, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, the original keepers of this land, for hosting us today and for hosting TIFF on their land every day. Absolutely. Tonight's conversation will be moderated by the fantastic Juan Carlos Eseniegas. Juan Carlos has established himself as one of the most respected and sought-after TV journalists within the film industry in Latin America. For 20 years, Juan Carlos has worked as a reporter, producer, editor, and anchor for CNN Español. He was also the creator, producer, and host for Ojo Critico, I knew I was going to bust that one up, a TV show dedicated to Hollywood and Latin America's film industry's news. Besides covering the most important film festivals in the world, Juan Carlos has served as a member of the jury for film festivals throughout Latin America and has also been the ambassador and consultant to the Premios Platino Awards, which is the most important global event for the development, support, and promotion of the film industry in Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. Please join me in welcoming our host for tonight's special event, Juan Carlos.
Thank you so much. Thank you, TIFF. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for the people who are following us via streaming on YouTube. A few words that I would like to say about Gael García Bernal tonight, whom I have met. It's been almost 2 decades. So just like it probably happens to most of you, it seems that as we have known Gael right from the beginning, which was exactly 17 years ago when he entered for the first time in our cinematic memories as the protagonist of Amores, Perros, a film that defined Latin American cinema at the beginning of the 21st century and that to this day is still considered one of the most significant works of contemporary Hispanic cinema. As I mentioned before, it's been 17 years since then, and precisely today, at this edition of TIFF, marks the 17th film that Gael, as an actor, or as a director, or executive producer, presents in Toronto, and we'll talk more about it later. Following Amores Perros, Bernal wouldn't rest, and just a year after, he returned to the screen to participate in another iconic movie in Latin American cinema, Y tu Mamá También. Besides Alejandro, González, Iñárritu, and Alfonso, Cuarón, who were his first directors and mentors, Gael earned the respect of the artistic community not only in Mexico, but also internationally, which in the next few years, and to this day, has allowed him to work with diverse filmmakers such as Pedro Almodóvar, Michel Gondry, Pablo Larraín in 2 occasions, and the late Héctor Babenco. Gael, is one of the most recognizable Latin faces in Hollywood. He told me last year that Hollywood is not the ceiling. And because of that, while he continues to star in an American series like Mozart in the Jungle, he recently finished shooting the film Museo by Alfonso Ruiz Palacios in Mexico, a project that I'm eager to see, by the way. And today at TIFF, he is presenting the French film If You Saw His Heart, by director Joan Chemla, who said she had written the screenplay thinking exclusively about Gael, not knowing whether he would accept or not. Besides what he's going to tell us tonight about his artistic career, Gael García Bernal's social political stances have turned him into a powerful voice regarding issues like the immigration crisis, and that's also what he has denounced through his art. There are many things to discuss with him here tonight, so let's get started. Welcome, Gael.
Gracias. Eso. Ahí, vientos. Gracias. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much. Yes. This is a very good way to cure the jet lag. Yes.
I was going to ask you about that jet lag. You told me backstage you've been working for 4 weeks in Japan.
Yes.
Was it the first time there for you?
No, it's the second time. The second time I was there shooting the 4th season of Mozart in the Jungle. So it happens in Japan. a little bit, just a little bit happens in Japan. Okay. It's incredible. Japan, man, it's an amazing place. Yeah.
Well, let's start with the beginning, I think, from the beginning. If you were not an actor, you most probably would be here tonight too as a journalist, because I think at that moment in your life you thought maybe a journalist could be a career for you, or you went to school to become a philosopher, but that kind of, you stopped there. So, right?
Well, many things I wanted to be. Definitely, I wanted to be if I wasn't here, I would be a rural pediatrician.
Seriously?
Yes, that was my main, that's the one thing I maintained for a long, long time, to be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor. And then, I wanted to do many things. Journalism was something that interested me, investigation, anthropology, sociology, and I entered, philosophy in the UNAM, the National Autonomous University in Mexico, and not to be a philosopher as such, but just, the openness that studying philosophy can give you, and I didn't know if I was going to go into literature or, I don't know, academic kind of world, or I just had no idea. But I always enjoyed acting. I did. The same way that I always enjoyed playing football, and the same way that I enjoyed doing many other things. And that's because my parents are actors. So I wanted to do everything I could possibly do to not become an actor.
Why?
And there was a student strike that made me. There was a student strike in the National Autonomous University. Maybe someone here remembers. In '97, there was for 1 year, there was a student strike, and at that point I decided to go travel and go to Europe because I had never been to Europe, and I bought a ticket to London, and the money ran out in 3 days, and I ended up. Just finding a way of how to stay there a little bit. It was back in the day where there was no Google and no mobile phones and nothing, so it was kind of, enjoyable. You can get away with many things, And I was working at the bar, undocumented, of course. I was working at the bar serving beers and stuff, and I said, what am I going to do? I feel a little bit bored about this. And I went to see the drama schools that were in London, because obviously the London stage, it has a reputation. So let's see if the schools of theater here, how they are, no? And I auditioned for Central School of Speech and Drama and got in. And then I had to put my act together, and see how the hell I was gonna manage to stay there for 3 years studying theater, and that's the short story, and that's actually the things I can say. That's the things I can.
But you said something that I would like to know, because you mentioned that your mother is an actress, and your father an actor and a director as well. So why you were fighting that not wanted to become one?
Well, I think it's a very simple psychoanalytic kind of conclusion, just not wanting to be what your parents do, basically. Not wanting to fall into the kind of the set route. Also not wanting to I found theater very, very close, very something that I would never abandon, because it's, even if I was a rural pediatrician, I would have found it really cool to say like on a Friday, like, I cannot do this surgery because I have to go to my play, Like I thought it was going to be like a really funky doctor in that sense. And also because I mean, I don't know, it was something I was always going to do. I thought of it like I mean, and this might goes to show, I mean, it's in parallel with the film that I'm presenting here in Toronto. It's I felt like being born in a gypsy community, You're born into a theater world. You breathe in the theater, you sleep in the theater, you have your, I mean, you do your homework and you're in the theater. I would accompany my parents to all the rehearsals, and I would see things that like a kid my age would not see, and I would experience and read this. I mean, I would see a play written by Buchner, for example, when I was 8 years old or 9, and so I was exposed to things that were really interesting, and they allowed me to grow a lot, in a way. But at the same time, I thought, well, this is something I always have here in my back pocket, I can always do, So I didn't want to do what seemed immediate to me, and also because I'm a bit of a contrarian as well. Like people were saying, like, oh, you have to act, please act. Yeah, do it, keep on doing it. And I was like, no. The more they said, the more I didn't want to do it.
Shy away from it.
Yeah.
Do we have any? Sorry, we have any aspiring actors here tonight? One over there. Okay, a few. What would you tell to them? Because I think for you what's very important, the academy, like to go to drama school. That's something you always advise people if they ask you?
To go to drama school, definitely. To go to theater school, absolutely. But also to study something else. To not quit your day job. Yeah. No.
To make you more a round person?
Well, yeah, it's just the openness, because I think there we can throw, I mean, like definitions that are valid in the terms of, it's so subjective what we do, it's like you like it, you don't like it. There is no right and wrong, there is no established approach that definitely works. But I would say that there is a definite division that can be done, which is openness and closeness, I mean, there is actors that are very open, and there's actors that are very closed. And sometimes actors that are very closed can be really good at what they do and what they know how to do. And they can be brilliant at that. But some actors that are very open, they can do many, many, many things. And they can also live a life that doesn't depend on them getting the applause, which is so important for actors. To not always look for that applause, that immediate gratification, that old-fashioned kind of diva, kind of like, this kind of thing, because it really is something that is completely ephemeral, it just disappears, it leaves. There's another flavor of the month coming next time, it's not a, and this is not to not romanticize the part of acting, because it is really romantic, but the open actors are able to live and enjoy more the experience of the fraternal activity of making a film, being in play, and that is the let's say the starting point for everything, regardless of not them being like 10 people in the audience or 10,000. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, it is that experience that really matters, and I think that. Really, the actors that have that openness, they just can, they can expand and explore artistically also like interesting things. They're not just puppets, They can actually communicate and work in this tangent of expression that is interpreting other characters. They can actually tap onto interesting things and maybe hopefully change things as well, and spark up discussions and stuff. So like a doctor, like keep on studying, you know, keep on
Rural
investigating, keep
pediatrician.
on enjoying. Yes.
So in a way, you prefer to be criticized by people close to you than just be adulated. Is that a word? Yeah, that's a word. He's going to help me with my English because his English is better than mine.
No, I don't know.
How do you take criticism?
Well, depends how it is, and depends where it's coming from, and depends, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it depends on where it comes from. I have very good friends that I admire a lot, that we have a very fortunate relationship where we can, you know, dissect the work that we do between each other. I mean, yeah, they are like Diego, like Alfonso, Cuarón, like Iñárritu. I mean, friends that I can really trust and kind of embark on a conversation of this bouncing back and forth, but also many others that are not. You possibly wouldn't know. I mean, they're not famous, no. And these friends are really interesting to talk to, you know, and to wonder, and then the rest, it's just you know, at the beginning it was actually complicated for me because when I did Amores, Perros, I never expected these films to have absolutely any transcendence. I thought Amores, Perros was going to be seen by. I actually asked for a VHS copy to the producers. Yeah, to the producers before leaving, and I thought, this is such a, you know, like so wise of me, you know, so astute to say like, hey, give me a VHS, you know, because I want to show it to my family, you know. and I mean, and that became Amores, Perros, and I never got the VHS copy. It wasn't necessary. It became a film that was seen all over the world, and so all of a sudden there was a lot of attention put on everyone that participated in that movie, and you know, instantly there's you know, there's an external point of view. You know, etymologically we always find there is a mistake, I think, where we think that someone is famous. Alguien es famoso, like es famoso. Because really that person isn't famous. It's the outside that makes that people famous, that perceives that person as someone famous. You don't wake up one day being famous. You know, like looking at the mirror and saying, I'm famous. You know, it's not, I mean, it's very different to wake up and actually having like a pimple, no? I mean, that is something that happens, and it happens to you, no? It's not someone else's perception. But the famous thing is an outsider's point of view. So in a way, you have to fight it, and by fighting it, I mean that it is not an easy thing to come to terms with, because I didn't want that. I didn't look for that. I wasn't even thinking it was possible. And all of a sudden you get recognized in the streets by a work you did that you like doing, which is very nice. It's better than most famous people are. You know, like there's a lot of famous people that, what work have they done? I don't know.
Crappy work.
You know, like, I don't know, like it is just, so it's really nice to have that. But at the same time, it is a thing of like, okay, this is something that is happening on the outside. They're not, your development is not, you know, it doesn't go hand in hand with what that's going. So you have to fight it and kind of find it also comfortable to walk into a room and see people in the eye. You know, if they're looking at you, well, you look at them back. You know, and to also ask for your space. You know, as well, if it's necessary. You know, like. Sometimes he would get, especially when I was a young man, like it would get a little bit like complicated to go places, you know, like you know, this whole thing, and it was interesting to also say like, okay, I know that I just want to hang out here. I want to experience this, and I don't want this opportunity to be spoiled by me having to play a part. Because I'm not a public figure in the sense that I'm not using this to become a president or to become, this is something that is happening, and I can decide to also where the boundaries might be, and sometimes you feel good about it, sometimes you don't feel comfortable about it. So, and then there comes a wonderful point in life where you don't care about it anymore, and you just enjoy it.
And did you feel at some point, not now, but the need to hide, maybe? Hide in a city where nobody, was not going to recognize you?
I'm here with a microphone, Like, no, not anymore, not anymore. No, it's not, no, because the intimacy always is sustained, is always, it's something that you have. Nobody can take that away unless you give it, But I am not that kind of person. I don't know. I don't know.
Amores, Perros. So besides listening to Gael tonight, and he's sharing his career with us, we're going to see some clips of one of the biggest performances that he has given us. So we're going to start with 3 of them.
Is it black and white?
It's not all color. You're not that old. So we'll go with these first 3, and we'll talk about it.
Okay, cool. Qué bonito, qué bonito. Sí. That last one, yeah.
Potente.
Sí,
Very
sí,
strong.
sí.
I wish I could read minds, because while you were watching this, I don't know if you were also looking at Gael and you were like so into it. What were you thinking when you see this?
I was thinking, my
Do you
God, my
like to
voice
watch
has
yourself?
changed. You know, like my voice has changed, and also like I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I was doing Amores Perros. Really, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. I had no idea. Honestly, I didn't know what. I mean, you know, making films was so far away for me. There were only 6 films done that year in Mexico. And you know, we come from, I mean, Mexico has a very strong filmic culture, you know, in the 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, it had a huge industry. Many films were made. I mean, we have a huge pantheon of stars, no, and of directors and amazing people that did many great movies. But it was at that time, like late 90s, where the film world just completely collapsed, you know, in Mexico. There was nothing being done. And there were only 6 films done that year, and one of them was Amores Perros. So, I mean, again, to show why I asked that VHS, you know? But I was not aware of what was going on, you know? Like, I had no idea where the camera was, what lenses were used. I didn't understand that at all. I had no idea. And then with Y Tu Mamá También, it was the first time that you know, Alfonso Cuarón engaged us in the process of making the film. Mm. And so we learned a lot. He used us as his accomplices, me and Diego, to kind of work out the film, you know, and we became, I don't know, like a family in a way, like good friends. I mean, with Diego, I was already a good friend, but with Alfonso, it became like a person that would explain with a lot of patience, him and El Chivo Lubeski, the photographer of the film, with a lot of patience, they would explain to us what was going on, you know, what was happening, you know. I think they realized that we were those type of actors, that it didn't matter that we knew what was going on, because sometimes it's best that the actors don't know what's going on. And so we learned a lot whilst making that movie. And then with Diarios de Motocicleta, with this film, with Motorcycle Diaries, I mean, my God, it's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. Actually, I was talking with Rodrigo de la Serna, the actor in that film, and we were saying, like, I mean, you know, we were playing this game of let's say like definite things, you know, things that are completely definite about our lives. And he said, you know what, for me, something that is definite is that Motorcycle Diaries is the best film experience I've ever had and I will ever have. I'm fine with it. Like, I can live with that. Like, that was the best experience I will ever have of making a movie. I kind of agree a little bit, because it was at a time where there were no cameras in cell phones. And I mentioned that just because the world was very different at that point. You know, there were still things to be discovered, that we didn't get an immediate communication with many things. I mean, YouTube didn't exist. There was a feeling of when doing Motorcycle Diaries, we were doing like a triple sort of sociological, anthropological journey, traveling through the same place that these people traveled, that Ernesto and Alberto traveled through, but we were in a completely different world in a way, where Argentina was going through the strongest like economic crisis it has had, and then Chile, as opposed to the time when they were traveling, Chile was actually becoming prosperous, booming, you know, and then in Peru, with many past conflicts and shooting there, like working there, it was wonderful to work in the middle of the Amazon in Iquitos. I mean, with such freedom, it took us like 4 or 5 months, and I remember Walter Salles saying, guys, enjoy it, because this is the last film of this kind. Like, there's not going to be films like this anymore. And it's true. There's not films like this anymore. Like, in Spanish, with this budget, you cannot do them. Like, they don't exist. And let alone in Spanish, even in English. Like, even in English, if you wanted to do a film about this in English, you would have to bring in a superhero or something like that to be able to raise the money to do something like this with such freedom. It is an interesting time where I mean, films have become now more than ever like an act of faith and for the love of cinema, whilst the other is a complete and absolute machination of industry standards, you know, and I don't know. There's no middle ground, you know. There's no middle ground. There's no place for. It is quite. I don't know. I'm still optimistic, of course. I mean, I have to be, but it is a very difficult time in that sense. I mean, back in the day of Motorcycle Diaries, I would say that in the United States there was so much more openness to see this kind of movies than there is now. In England, there was much more openness to see this movie than there is now. Now we're not.
Why is that? Why do you think?
Why is that? I mean, do we have time to explain that? Do we have time to?
What's happening with society? I would say that I'm sure you were very satisfied intellectually being able to participate in a film like Motorcycle Diaries, but your interest, or you became social conscious very early on, and I understand the Zapatista movement was also like como se dice, un momento muy importante en tu vida que te cambió la mente. So in English would be like, how would you say that? It's
a turning point.
A turning point. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, that it was you know. I mean, and this is something that it's always interesting to explain. You know, sometimes because up front there is this sense, especially, I mean, in presenting these films in Europe or in the United States, or you know, that people wonder like, so the films are very political, you know, like political. And then, you know, you start to wonder, like, I mean, apart from the obvious answer that everything is political, all relationships are political, everything, you know, has been, you know, that kind of thing, there also comes this thing of like, well, you know, the thing is that we're brought up in countries where politics is very much in the surface of everything you do. I mean, in growing up in Mexico, I had there was a huge devaluation when I was very, very little. There was which, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, I don't think there has such a thing been here in Canada for a while, you know, but it is, I mean, one day the money is worth 3 times less, you know, that you have. There was a huge earthquake in 1985 in Mexico. Then there was the PRI party completely was a dictatorship that kind of, there was no freedom of expression, of political, of representation, of anything. And then, so, I mean, consequently, symptomatically, there was the uprising of the Zapatistas, and that woke up the nation and woke up America, really, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait, the indigenous people are not being heard, you know, are not being part of this conversation, you know, of where are we going. And for me, being 14 when the Zapatista uprising happened, well, I completely got involved in it, like all of us did, like many people in my generation did. So in a way, it became really political all of a sudden. There was a huge electoral fraud in 1988. So, I mean, the films are political, yeah. I mean, it would be crazy if they weren't. Like, what, I don't know, like, it would be, I mean, Amores, Perros and Mamá También are intrinsically political movies. They are. They have that edge, in a way. And I think that's where it comes from. So then you choose to articulate and to discuss that and to engage that, and it actually helps me in every film I do, you know, to have that notion of, you know, the political aspect, because it helps me to build the character, it helps me to build the mythology of the film that's being done. And I like to be, I like talking about it, you know, I like engaging in that conversation, because when I see a film, it also affects me politically, socially. It also incorporates me, even if it's a very surreal, you know, absolutely poetic, oniric film. I also engage with it politically. There's people that get tired of that get tired of politics, that don't want to talk about politics, that prefer politics to be like a tennis match that happens somewhere over there, you know. But I'm not like that.
No, we cannot do that. Okay, we're we're getting deep and serious, and we're going to talk more about that, that aspect of Gael, how he became an activist. But we're going back to the old films.
Okay.
And this one, you're going to laugh, I know, and enjoy. So let's go with the next 2 clips I think we have here.
A ver. It's nice to see them, because I never see them.
No?
No, I never. No, really, I don't.
You don't like to see yourself?
I mean, I see them when they come out, like, you know, in the festival, you know, and in the premiere and stuff, but then I never see them.
You never see them again?
No. No.
I would like to know how you like to work with directors and how you like to be directed. We have two different filmmakers here, Pedro Almodóvar and Pablo Larraín. Pedro Almodóvar, I understand that he does a lot of rehearsals, right? And probably when he starts shooting, that's what I heard from other actors, that the actual shooting, he prefers to stay a little way in a room with the monitor. So he kind of disconnect after being with you guys for rehearsals for a long time. How was that experience for you, for instance, with Pedro?
With Pedro, well, he's developed his own world, you know, of even a way or a rapport of how the character should talk, you know, and the you know, this melodramatic aspect that he engages on, and he writes these dialogues that are almost impossible, you know. When you read them, you go like, who talks like that? But then with Pedro Almodóvar kind of manages to build that into a world, no? And it is an interesting world that with some films it is a fascinating comedy, in some films it is a fascinating tragedy, and it is always, you know, I mean, he's got a big body of work. I mean, he's done how many films? Like 30 films or something? I don't know, 25 or something. But it is a big number of movies, and he has, you know, reached different edges, all with the same kind of universe that he builds and he embodies. So that is the process where the way he works, you know. It is, I mean, at least with the Bad Education, that was what happened with us. He like took us into this world of his own. We interpreted it, and he dictates very strongly like what you should do. It is restraining. It is not very free, but it works. You know?
Would you do it again?
Do it again with Almodóvar? If he calls me, yeah.
Yes. Because Pablo Larraín have you become, you think, his muse? Or maybe it's because you've done twice also with González Iñárritu, you did Babel and Amores, Perros. But is it because with Pablo, maybe you trust him and you're at the same frequency, or it's just because he's in love with you?
Oh, well.
Artistically, of course.
We have to ask him. I want to call a friend. No, like, let's call a friend. No, it's with Pablo. I mean, the thing is that we get along so well. You know, I mean, it's like you know, with Alfonso Cuarón, with El Negro Iñárritu, with Walter Salles, with Michel Gondry, with Pablo Larraín. There is a sense of, you know, a friendship and kind of. You know, just complete synchronicity also in the terms of what we're looking for, in terms of the filmic aspect. And Pablo, I mean, let's accept it. I know he's young, but he's one of the best filmmakers in the world right now. Really, he is. I mean, he's incredible. To do No is one of the most difficult films there is to do, you know. And Neruda is also really complicated, and it's about a poet, it's about Neruda. I mean, come on, it's really complicated. Who can pull that off? It's really, really, he engages on difficult subjects. He builds them. He just plays with cinema, plays with the format, plays with different tones of acting, you know. No is completely different than Neruda. We have a very strong communication. I love him as a brother, as a friend, as a confidant, as an accomplice. We've had the opportunity with these films to travel many places and to share, you know, many adventures in different parts of the world. And I just adore the way that we engage in a conversation, creative conversation, especially when working together. Like, well, in No, it was the first time that I worked with him, of course. Mm-hmm. And all of the actors had already worked with him in other films. And then when we did Neruda, all of us had already worked with Pablo, except two new incursions, which were one Argentinian actress and the Spanish actor. And we had to tell the actors that were just coming in, like, yeah, this is the way that we do it. Why? There's no rehearsal. Like, you don't rehearse with Pablo at all.
Nothing.
There's no rehearsal, absolutely. You come in, you prepare, you talk to him a little bit. I talk to him more about the film itself, not about my character, you know. And just playing with the hat, with the costume, with everything, and you start to find it. And that is his process, you know. It is very difficult to describe, but it is a very virtuous one, you know, where at the end of the day, the films fall into place, you know. They come together and they really, really, really work. And what I'm so glad about these two movies that were shown, I mean, there's Noah and Neruda, is that I have the confidence that these films are going to be seen by my grandchildren. You know, these are the films that are going to be seen by many, many people, even, you know, in 50 years' time, if the world still exists. But we will, like, they will be seen because, you know, these are films that come from the, you know, in this industrial world, that, I mean, entertainment world that we live in. They are from the periphery, you know. They are like marginal films that, you know, from Chile, a little country, you know, over there, you know. Man, I mean, really, like, who knows? I have no idea how many, if Clockwork Orange ever won an award, or ever was nominated, or ever was. I have absolutely no idea. Yet, it is one of the most wonderful films ever done, and people will see it past the ages, and they will always see it. And there are films that have won the Oscar that nobody will ever see again. Films that have won, like, best film. There are names. I'm not going to say them.
But they know.
Yes, exactly. You know which they are, you know? Like, or maybe you forgot about them already, and it's like, yeah. So it is like, it is a thing that it is wonderful, you know. It is wonderful that at the end, the triumph of cinema, the triumph of the spirit wins over, always. And that is one of the main factors why I keep on doing films, because I kind of trust that at the end of the day, it is all about this act of faith, you know, this act of love. And these films hopefully will have a transcendence, and they will exist for a while, and they will show people 50 years from now how we were, what we were doing. It's a piece of our pancreas. It's a piece of, I mean, every film, every little clip, I see it's my epidermis there. You know, I see myself there. I see how it was at that point. My voice was very different. And it's just wonderful to see that. It is, I mean, who's the very quotable, I mean, there's many quotable French directors, no? But I think it was Godard who said that that film captures like death in life, you know, in live motion. There is something like that. It captures something that will stop existing, but it captures it. It holds it there. And now we can see the amazing genius of Buster Keaton or Cantinflas or Charlie Chaplin, and we see them as if they were around the corner, no? Like, we see them like if they were here, and we can always, like, we also get excited about how the hell did they manage to shoot that? You know, it is really, I mean, if you see Modern Times, think about how they did that. It's really, really complicated. It's really wonderful. I mean, it is really an trabajo de artesano, like a craftsman's work. Sorry, that translation doesn't work. But it is artisanal work. You know what I'm saying.
Okay, we're getting, again, deep and very serious. We're going to share two more clips of a different type of work that Gael has done on film. So one documentary, one fiction about the same subject matter, I would say. What was the reason why you developed this empathy, huge empathy for social problems like the migrants, like the refugees, that you've been working outside of film as well as an activist and visiting countries, talking to people from Syria to Mexicans or people from Central America who has lost everything?
Yeah, where does it come from? Well, I mean, I must say it's something that it happens when you're. It happened to me when I was born, I guess. Ever since little, I started to wonder or see, this discovering these differences that some people are more privileged than others, and as a kid, it strikes you. I mean, I think it happens to all of us, but it strikes you as something really odd, something even new. You don't. I mean, obviously, you're not born knowing those differences or accepting them, or even. I didn't know my economic condition when I was a kid. Like, I had no idea we were poor, like absolutely no idea. Until one day my mother said, let's buy this book of economic cuisine, rather than the one that said Italian cuisine. It was like this one. And it was at a point there where I was like, why there was always this thing of we can't afford to get, why we can't afford, you start to wonder why this is, and I mean, mind you, I mean, I had a very privileged, cultural, loving upbringing, but definitely not with money at all, and in a way, this allowed me to also engage with with all the spectrum of society, which it is even more radical now, the difference between rich and poor, and in some countries, being poor, it is almost like a death trap. It is almost like a spiral that is impossible to escape. So I guess since little, I must say, just this notion came about. And then life just takes you to places, and you learn more things, and you engage in the conversations, and you start to wonder what the hell's going on and everything. And to make the long story short, well, I mean, amongst many other things and issues and things that we established, like Ambulante, like Canana, like where I was doing it to Mamá También. I don't know, like many other things that kind of came about with the Zapatista movement, with many things that just happened constantly. I was invited by Amnesty International to do they invited me to do a piece on the migrants from Central America going to the United States in their journey through Mexico. And this was something that at the time it was very seldom talked about, but it was something that was boiling, and it needed attention. And so thankfully I was invited to do that, and I proposed to them to do these 4 pieces, short films, and with a group of friends, we did these short documentaries called Los Invisibles, which each little documentary, they're on YouTube if you want to see them. Each of them engage on a different subject, on why on the journey, on the perils of these people doing the journey from Central America to the United States via Mexico. And it was interesting to engage in that because, as Mexicans, we always know about the migration that goes from Mexico to the United States, but we never know how it is, the treatment and the way that we engage with people from Central America going through Mexico to the United States. And so it was a very opening, perspective, thinking like, wow, I mean, realizing and talking to them and understanding their plight, which is even, in general, I must say, it's even worse than the one that Mexicans take to go to the United States. It's way much worse. Also, it's countries that really some people cannot go back to, And so we did this documentary also to investigate on another documentary afterwards that we did called Who is Dayane Cristal, which is, thank you. I recommend it also because it was a nice experiment as well. I played a character in the documentary as a kind of like a serious Borat, you know? Yeah. Where,
Serious.
Yeah. Where I was saying that I was from Honduras and I was making this journey we got on the train and we went and we did the journey all the way to the United States. And it was interesting to do it because at the same time, I mean, speaking from my very personal experience, it is some of the highlights of my life to be on top of that train. To be on top of that train with the migrants, with all of them. It is a train that carries hope. It is a train full of passion and love and compassion and just, fraternity. And they're all going for the best intentions. They just want to make their lives better, And they want to be respectful. They want to integrate. They want to, make it better for the community where they arrive, even if it's the United States or if it's Mexico. And I felt really alive in that train. I remember feeling like this is something that everyone should live this experience, because it is like, people are risking their lives, and on top of the train, we're all equal. So it was interesting to play the character, to play an actor, to be an actor playing a character, because they would act with me. And when we act together, we're all the same. We're all the same. All my privileges, all my nationality, all the things that can divide us are gone. Like we become the same, And so it is, and also doing the journey, I was wondering, some of them I'm never going to see again. I never know if they're going to make it. I never know if they're going to be what they're going to do. And I remember telling them, like, drop me a line, whenever you get there or whatever you decide to do in your life. Like, just write a little message in Twitter, like, just let me know, like, hey, remember we were in the train together? Yeah, I made it back, or I escaped the United States because I didn't like it, or something, like, I don't know, something that made, So this is, this is I'm interested in that because I'm a migrant. I've been migrating all my life. I can bet that all of you come from migrants, and so it is a natural process of humanity. Humanity is still alive thanks to migration, and it is a natural phenomenon that even if we downsize it and we take it away from all the compassionate, all the humane aspect of migration, if we downsize it to just economical terms, there is something that is not happening, which is, it had to happen ages ago. Even Adam Smith talks about this. Fuck's sake, For there to be free trade, there needs to exist a free trade, a free movement of labor. If we are going to live in that system, we need to establish a way that free transit of labor exists. And the thing is that the world is pursuing this free trade to engage and communicate, and it has brought wonderful things. In terms of communication, in terms of getting to know what is happening in the other side of the world, and many products have saved lives. Like potatoes in Europe, sweet potatoes in Asia. It has saved populations and everything, but we don't establish a pathway for this free transit of labor, and it is needed for this economic system to sustain. So there is a huge incongruency there that it is sickening, really, the way that politicians play with that, and the way that politicians argue and lie about that and use migration as the main card to be dealt. and to be kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna do something with migration, or actually I'm gonna be against it because it appeases like their electorate, or the fear of some people that have of the other, so it is. I mean, we can go on forever and talk about this and stuff, but it is ultimately. I mean, that which drove me to do this, to understand this, to understand this this journey, and to I feel such empathy because, again, I'm a migrant, and I will always be, and my kids will be migrants as well, and these people are making the same journey that I do all the time. They're experiencing they have the right to be better, like Padre Solalinde says, we all are born, have the right to find ourselves better. We have to look for that as a community, even, not only personally, but as a community. And we have to search for that. So that is where everything kind of, I mean, that's why I'm engaged in this, but it is very difficult to also say like one thing in particular about why I'm engaged in this, because it is something that was intrinsic in the way I was brought up, I guess. And it was very fortunate to be grown up like that.
When I hear you and every time we talk about politics, social, political crisis and everything, I feel you have the passion, you have the brain, I know, and you have the heart. Have you ever thought about trying to do something from a political aspect, like become a politician?
Like formally, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about it. And I'd like to open up. No. It is. No, I've thought about it. Yes, I've thought about it. Because also, I mean, I think I've had a natural process as well of being apolitical in terms of thinking, or maybe being against politics in a sense. At the beginning, when you're young, fuck, everything is like, nothing makes sense. They're all corrupt. Blah, blah, it doesn't make sense. You have to go through that, I guess. You have to go through that pathway to then. Now I understand that most of the and I'm really, I mean, curious and excited when I see a politician that actually believes in those small changes that politics can do. So just to give an example, if we have to talk about one of the things that have, that we've transcended as a society worldwide, and that we go like, okay, this is a triumph of humanity. Definitely the discussion, the opening, and the ongoing discussion that there's still a lot to be done, but that has to do with women's rights. It is a big leap forward in humanity. I mean, and this has only been for the last 100 years or something, strongly, on a political level. On a political, argumentative, structural level, we've managed to talk about this, and to engage. And this involved small political movements, small political definitions. It involved fighting politically. It involved discussing. It involved passionate arguments that were one against the other. And slowly, there's been many ways that this discussion has produced good outcomes. Like, for example, us men carrying the babies in the supermarket. It is a triumph of the 20th century, really. Like, we now carry babies in the supermarket in our thingies, There's many brands, but also there's not brands. In Mexico, traditionally women carry them with a rebozo, yes. So there's rebozos for men as well. I have one. And and we carry our kids like that. And it is such a, I've got to say that it is one of the, when I carried my kids like that, I was like, oh my God, I'm so fortunate I'm able to do this. Before it was something that nobody ever thought about. I mean, grandparents doing that, like it didn't exist, you know? It didn't exist, and now it is normal. In many cultures all over the world, you see this happening. You see this, I mean, in many countries, men are carrying the babies in markets and stuff, and so right. So it is, I mean, you know, there is there is reasons to be hopeful, I think, and this involved, again, like political maneuvers. This wasn't made just from let's say, an artistic, you know, like discussion, that kind of. No, it involved like almost bureaucratic, you know, little shifts and things and professional politicians do that. So I appreciate politicians that believe in politics, that believe in doing social service, that believe in this, and that are not corrupt, of course, and that want to change things. And I think I read an interview recently of George Steiner, and he said that one thing. I mean, and I don't know, he must be 90 years old or something, and he says that one of the things that he regrets. The interviewer asked him if he had any regrets. No? And he said, yes, I have one. He said, I never engaged in the political agora. You know, I always talked in the academy about politics. I discussed. We talked about it. Opinion. But I never engaged myself politically in the doing this work, and I think I should have done that. And he, in a way, he mentions what we all know, like, well, if there's something we can do about it, we might as well dedicate a little bit of our lives to that and engage into that, because it'll be helpful. It'll be really helpful, other than people that are doing it for other reasons doing that, which now we can see it's very hurtful.
Would you vote for Gael?
Do you want to? No, depends.
Okay.
No.
I know you have questions as well, and I have some Twitter questions. But before, we are going to see two clips, one after the other, please, of the most recent work he has done on film and television.
great.
Well, this is Gael's most recent film that he brought this year to Toronto. If you still can see it, If You Saw His Heart is playing Friday, September 15, at TIFF Bell Lightbox at 6:30 p.m. We're getting ready for the questions that you might have. But I would like to know if you can tell us something about this new film. Is it the first time you're doing? No, well, you did with Michel Gondry and friends, but it's great to see that we talked about this last year in Cannes. When I ask you about Hollywood, for a lot of people, Hollywood is the most important place to be and to get at the end of the journey. For you, it's just one little part. Mozart in the Jungle allow you to do a series. How do you feel about a project like that, and how is it any different working in Europe or in Latin America, or it's just it's all the same for you, in the sense of it's.
But first, I talk about Mozart in the Jungle.
Let's talk about Mozart in the Jungle.
I love doing Mozart in the Jungle. I love it. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I really like it. I mean, it's really fun. You know, it's about classical music. It's with great actors, and it is a very atypical show, you know, for television or whatever we can call television now. So it is a very different thing, and they allow us to do everything we want, you know, and we enjoy doing it so much. I mean, I love it. I am absolutely in love with all the people that work in there, and I love Rodrigo, the character. You know, he's really he's a good guy. Yeah. He's a kind of, I never thought of being, actually, talking about, I never thought I was like being a conductor, you know? But
Gustavo Dudamel helped you, right?
But now I would like to be a conductor, you know? But I'm already, I mean, there's many things that I cannot be anymore, you know? Like a football player, no, not anymore.
Joan Chemla is the director of this new film, and she said that she started writing the script thinking about you, but she didn't even know you or have talked to you about it. And you said last night that she wrote you a letter that was very convincing, and you didn't want to talk about it, but would you tell us tonight what the letter said?
The things
that convinced you.
Yeah, I cannot remember very clear. You know, it was just overall, it was like a 4-page letter, you know, very beautiful, very, well, I don't know, it hit me where it hurt, you know? Like, it was like, oh my God, this is making something, this is tickling me, you know? This is like, she said very nice things about me, which was really lovely to hear, you know, in a letter. And also she told me about what she wanted to do. And I think it was something interesting that she mentioned. I mean, it was like about, you know, to do a film about a character that is in a trauma, in a traumatic situation, you know, of a friend that died in front of him. And him being an exile within an exile quality already, because the gypsies from Marseille are exiles from the Franco persecution, you know, and from the Nazis as well. And so they ended up there, and the character that I play is also ostracized from this community in the film. So those concepts were really engaging and interested to play. So I think it was that. It was just the whole letter was really beautifully kind of written and kind of, you know, articulated, that I was like, okay, I'm going to read the script.
She said something about his beauty, his angelical aura, innocence.
No.
She said, no, not in the letter, but
all right,
in a separate interview that I was reading.
Okay.
Yeah, you have that boyish soul that she liked. Okay, so do you have questions for him? I bet you do. So we have a microphone, and we can go first there, since you're there, yeah.
Hi. Hola, Gael.
Hold on.
Acá. Hola. Hi. I would like to ask you a question about these characters that you bring to life. I find that just as a person that watches you and watches these characters, they stay with me for years. You know, I still remember Octavio. I remember Daniel García from El Abuelo y Yo. Moisés, you know, from Desierto, and certainly Daniel from If You Saw His Heart. I cannot stop thinking about him. So how is it like for you, like an actor, to this relationship with your characters? How is it that you bring them to life? Do you have any rituals? And how do you detach from them when you put them to rest, when the project is done? Thank you.
Well, the approach is always very different depending on the film. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes there's like great pathways, you know, like for example with Daniel in If You Saw His Heart, had to become a gypsy and talk with a Spanish, French, caló, you know, and it's a very strange accent that there is no, uniformity as well. Like everyone talks in a different way within that community, you know, and so sometimes you get those things that make the character be built, kind of. Also the musicality, for example, of the gypsies. It is like, you have to learn the rumba and the bulerías and all of that, which is really complicated, you know, and we had to kind of engage in that. And once you get that, well, you appropriate the character, you know, you build up a character. But then there's other films that don't have such direct pathways, and you have to find, you know, like serpent around and kind of like look for other ways of doing them. But it is always a very kind of a very fun process, because I could be purposely working on that, preparing, from learning lines to just thinking about it, and to being, running, and all of a sudden thinking, maybe I'm gonna do this, maybe this character has this, you know, discussions, and you know, like things that just come up, and you start to try out things. And like in the theater, you try out things, and if they don't work well, you try other things and like that. And I don't detach from the characters as such. Because they are never me, you know. They are never the person who I am. But in a way, they become like cousins of mine, which I always have around here. You know, like guardian angels in a way. I like to see it that way. Definitely when talking about Ernesto Guevara, for example, I feel he's around here, you know? Like I feel like, hey, man, like we can engage in a conversation. You know, we can have like yeah. So I like to play that. I don't know. But it is not that I actually have them all sitting here, because, of course, where would they sit? No? Yeah.
Gael, I have a question from, we're going back to you guys, but since we've been talking about theater since the beginning, and this is on Twitter, Lupe Fuentes, at Lupe Actriz, she says, is it true that you're coming to Argentina to do theater? You haven't done theater in Mexico, have you?
Yes,
you did?
Yes, a lot, but not for a long time. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm gonna do a play soon in Argentina and Mexico and possibly Spain.
Okay, well, looking forward.
Yes, I wanna.
So we had a couple of you. Oh, you.
Oh my
Thank you.
God. Hola, te quiero mucho, primero, y viva
Gracias.
México también. So growing up, like as a kid, which I guess wasn't that long ago, but I was always fascinated by you and Diego Luna's relationship. So from Rudo y Cursi to Tu Mamá También, y ahorita con Canana y todo eso que está pasando allá en México. Like, how has your relationship just changed, and how have you guys grown together to where you guys are now? Obviously, very big politically involved, and are very big advocates for social justice over there in Mexico.
Well, it is one of the fortunes of destiny, definitely, to have a friend like Diego, you know, to have a friend that you grow up with almost from the same kind of background as well, because his parents are also people from the theater. And so we grew up together. You know, we always had similar references, similar points of view as well. And and we have something that is very special, that is like we are very good at working together. We get along really well. I mean, we have a lot of fun when we're together. It's like, it's really fun. But at the same time, we work really well together. Like, we definitely do. When we have to play the part of like, okay, it's me and Diego, and we know that, I don't know, I mean, it's, I heard one day, I think it was Keith Richards, that they were asking him about how he plays guitar with Ronnie Wood and stuff, and he said something about like how both of them, maybe on their own, they're very lousy guitar players, but together they're incredible, you know? And with Diego and I think when we're together, we're unstoppable. Like, there is something that I feel like we just win all the time. Like, it's just like, and it has to do maybe perhaps because the fact that with Diego, I feel we're not competing with anybody. Like, we are like our own, I don't know. It is a beautiful friendship, of course. I mean, it is one of my best friends, and we work really well together, and we have really interesting conversations, artistic, political, whatever they are, you know, confident conversations. I don't know, it is a really wonderful luck, you know, that we encounter ourselves in this world. Yeah.
We probably have time for 2 more, so let's do one here.
So, congratulations. First, you are such an inspiration, not for youngs just in Mexico, but also young people everywhere. So, gracias.
Gracias.
And embracing this like social momentum or rush. What would you say, or what message could you give to those young people, those dreamers in the USA at this moment who are somehow fear or afraid of their future? What could you say to them?
Oh man, yeah, it is. I mean, how did we get here? No, it's crazy. I mean, it is definitely heartbreaking. I mean, it is because there's one side of the argument where, or let's say one side of the of the situation which we cannot. We don't have any ways of engaging with rationally. How do you convince someone that says and opens up his presidential career by saying that Mexicans are rapists and drug traffickers and bad people and whatever? Do we have to convince him that we're not? How denigrating is that? How stupid it is. I mean, how, like, that should be ignored if somebody says that. It should not be, like, you cannot argue with someone that believes that on absolute lies and irrational mythology. You know, it's impossible to engage with that, to prove to that person something. And the people that think like that, it's very difficult to engage in a conversation, let alone convince them. It is impossible. It's like, it's very difficult because it is denigrating. And the thing is that this ideology is a consequence of many years of developing this structure of thought, of mechanisms, it developed up to a point that thinking that having free healthcare is a bad thing. How do you? It is an ideology that is constructed. It is not. It doesn't come from nowhere, and it is done also economically as well, with a lot of pressure, a lot of putting people in dire situations. That's why there's no strikes. I mean, you would have thought that with this president there would have been strikes, in the United States, like civil disobedience to actually, achieve things. But there are none because people are really scared to lose their jobs because they will have no health care, because if they lose their jobs, the health care is gone. And they're scared as hell. And so we're living in a moment where we have to highlight the fact that this is an ideological thing. It has nothing to do economically. It has nothing to do with any rational explanation, it is purely ideological. It is purely a lie. And this president is lying every single day. And he's getting away with it all the time. And there's opinions. We all opine. There's thousands of journalists that I don't know how the hell they have the stamina to yet write his name, you know, and to mention the lie, the new lie that's being said, you know. I mean, it is horrible. It is horrendous. It is really the world, but specifically the United States, is in a really huge crisis. Really, it is very difficult. I don't know how they're going to work it out, but it is really complicated. And the problem is that now it goes to show that, okay, well, a consequence is like, okay, these kids that, as you know, the kids that are able to, that receive this program, the DACA program, no, and there are people that are that can they are not the ones that didn't go to school, that you know, I mean, they're like the privileged ones without documentation, without papers. But they are people that you know, they're doing the right thing. They're scared as hell to cross a red light because if they get caught, they will be deported. They are the best citizens. They are the best, the most law-abiding, quiet, very quiet, you know, working and doing their jobs and doing their things, working as hell, you know, in their day jobs, in everything, doing the school. And they're the ones that are being deported. And I mean, I would say for them, I mean, and I love the fact that, I mean, recently there were these two girls that went to demonstrate. And they were like, we're not afraid. We're going to be facing this. And actually, all of these kids should be doing that. Should be demonstrating, and society and organizations, and civil organizations should be joining them into doing massive strikes to stop this lie from just evolving. And so this is something that happens, is what can be done in the United States, you know. But from my perspective, I'm Mexican. I feel Mexican, Latin American. I don't live in the United States. I have no desire of living in the United States. The thing that we can do, the only thing that we can do, and it is our responsibility and it is our massive debt that we have, is that we have to build a notion in a four-wheeled kind of construction of a proposal to tell all these kids from Mexico, from El Salvador, from Nicaragua, from Guatemala, from Colombia, from every part of Latin America, to tell them that Latin America is also their home and that they are welcome, and that Mexico, for the Mexicans from the United States, and also for all the Latin Americans, come on, yes, of course, Mexico is the mother that they never knew, and the United States is the father that doesn't want to recognize them. And they have to get to know their mother, you know. And I strongly feel, please, as whatever I can do, you know, as a Mexican here, I tell, to all of these kids, like, come to Mexico. We receive you. We need you. We need you because you are the guys that were left, that your parents were caught in a situation economically, politically, maybe also, you know, like as a fantasy, and they were caught up and they went to the United States thinking of something, you know, that the future was going to be brighter. This was your parents' choice. Now you have also the choice to come back to Mexico if you want, and you will always have Mexico. If you want to stay in the United States, still, you will always have Mexico. Like, you will always have Mexico as a place where you're welcome and where you can definitely enjoy this transversal, incredibly complex culture that we can provide. Because if something that Mexico wins against the United States is that we have a much more sophisticated, heterogeneous, incredible culture than the United States has. And we can receive, and more generous in a way. And I can say that now because just read the papers. You know? So yeah, this is my thing. But it is, I mean, but we reach this point right now, you know. I mean, after a Holocaust, after world wars, you know, it's crazy that we're still talking about people being pointed out and wanting those people segregated.
So with his films, I know that he likes to entertain, Gael, but he also likes to open conversations and discussions, and I think he has done that tonight as well with what he told us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being here.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to say one thing. Hey, thank you, guys. Thank you. And, ay, cabrones. Arigatou gozaimasu. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And just really, thank you so much for being here. You are all so kind to come and listen to someone, like, I don't know, without any film being played. Like, you guys crazy? Like, I don't know. No, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. And really, to all I only see young people here. I only see young people here. Yes. And for all of you young people, not really, like for all of those that yes, like pursuing or aspiring actors, no, or something, to all of you, like I always really, please keep this in mind, like really challenge your certainties, challenge them and open up be able to entertain other people's ideas without getting upset, be able to entertain other people's ideas without thinking that you're in danger, without thinking that you are gonna, I don't know, that you're gonna feel insecure of anyway, because really that is the nature of acting. Acting is it is the main motor of empathy, you know. It is to put yourself in the shoes of someone else. And if I have to say something good that acting has given me in terms of my, let's say, kind of, it has given me breath and it has given me a sense of purpose, is that it has allowed me to create more empathy and to feel that we are all the same, you know. So all of you aspiring actors, young, or not so young, but still young, just like really challenge that certainty, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Juan. Salud, salud. Oye, gracias, Juan.
Oye, gracias.
Qué buena onda, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a ti.
No, hombre, gracias.